Hello, my friends. I am so glad that you have clicked this video. I am really thrilled for tonight's episode. If you are anything like me, you probably already love the Roman Empire. I am really curious to what part of the Roman Empire that are your favorite. Mine are all the eccentric emperors and orators of the Senate. Please let me know in the comments what yours are. As I said, I genuinely want to know. Well, now it's time to travel back in time again. So close your eyes now and let the noise of the modern world fade into the distance. Feel the air grow still, the way it does before a great story begins. You are standing at the edge of memory, at the threshold of a civilization that once ruled the known world. The year is not yet counted. The land before you is wild and untamed, a place of hills and forests, where the Tiber River winds quietly beneath the early light of dawn. Here, in this ancient valley, something is about to begin. Something that will shape the destiny of continents, of language, of art, of empire itself. You can almost hear it, the distant echo of footsteps upon stone, the rhythm of hammers shaping the first walls of a city that will one day be called Roma. This is where our journey begins, in legend, in myth, in the cradle of one of humanity's greatest stories. So take a slow, deep breath. Now, let your shoulders soften. Let the world around you fade until all that remains is the whisper of history itself. And together, we will travel from the birth of Rome to the final twilight of Byzantium. We begin not with history, but with a dream, a shimmering haze of an origin story. Let your mind drift back to the quiet banks of the Tiber. The air here is soft, damp with the morning mist rising from the cool, slow water. The only sounds are the gentle rustle of reeds and the distant call of a bird. You see a small, rough basket, woven from wicker, rocking gently near the shore. Inside, two tiny, forgotten infants, Romulus and Remus, lie in peaceful slumber. The current has carried them to safety, to the foot of the Palatine Hill, where the wild things dwell. Now, picture a shadow falling over the scene. A magnificent she-wolf, her coat the color of damp earth and moonlight. She does not growl. She approaches with the protective stillness of a mother. Feel the ancient, primal power of this moment as she offers comfort to the foundling twins, nurturing them with a quiet, fierce devotion. This is the first breath of Rome, an act of survival, a bond with the wild under the silent gaze of the deep woods. Years pass in a tranquil rush. The twins grow strong, filled with the energy of the river and the hills. They are drawn back to the very spot where they were found, to the cluster of 7 low hills overlooking the Tiber. Breathe in the scent of wild herbs and sun-baked earth as you watch them stand, side by side, drawing lines in the dust, not merely for a village, but for a city, their own city. The line is drawn in the soil of the Palatine Hill. Feel the weight of the moment, the quiet solemnity of a founding ritual. Though the legend is tinged with sadness, the fateful quarrel, the loss of Remus, let your mind settle only on the emergence of the victor, Romulus, the first king. He stands atop the newly consecrated ground. The year, they say, is 753 years before the new era. The light shifts, becoming softer, a deep evening gold. The air is filled with the scent of wood smoke and damp clay as the first simple huts take shape. The early city grows quietly, drawing in settlers, outcasts, and wanderers. You are watching a small seed take root, nourished by the river, protected by the hills, and destined for an unimaginable future. For generations, the city is ruled by a succession of quiet, legendary kings, each adding a stone, a law, a tradition. But the air of royalty, the weight of a single ruler, does not sit easily upon the Roman spirit. A new structure, firm and grounded, is soon to rise. The Roman Republic. Senatus Populesque Romanus. The kings fade, not in a storm of fire, but in a gradual, firm assertion of shared authority. Take a gentle breath and step across the threshold, from legend into the early light of the Roman Republic. The air now feels different. It is charged with the measured cadence of debate, and the solid presence of stone architecture. You are now standing in the heart of this new world, the Forum Romanum. Close your eyes for a moment and listen. You hear the slow, deliberate footsteps of men in simple togas, the rustle of papyrus scrolls, the low murmur of serious conversation. The atmosphere is one of profound, shared duty. This is the era of the Senate and people of Rome, Senatus Populusque Romanus, or SPQR. This is not the voice of a king, but the careful balance of a community. The wise council of the Senate, comprised of the elder statesmen and the vital power of the people, expressed through their assemblies and elected officials, the consuls. Feel the solid strength of this structure, built not on blood right, but on law and accountability. Watch as the earliest challenges arrive, testing the Republic's resolve. The first conflicts are close to home, skirmishes among the rolling green hills of the Italian peninsula. The Roman citizen is first and foremost a farmer, a patriot, and a soldier. He carries his plow and his sword with equal devotion. The early Roman army moves with a slow, disciplined rhythm. Picture the shimmering bronze of their helmets and the simple, stacked shields, moving like a steady tide across the landscape. They do not rush, they endure. Then the world grows larger, and the stakes become immense. The Republic now faces a power equal to its own, a maritime empire across the sea, Carthage. The air thickens with the salt tang of the Mediterranean. This is where Rome learns the true meaning of enduring commitment. The Punic Wars stretch across a century of slow, grinding conflict. Picture the mighty Carthaginian general, Hannibal, crossing the snow-capped Alps. You do not witness the conflict, but the aftermath. The stillness of the battlefields, the quiet resolve in Rome itself. Even after crushing defeats, the Senate does not panic. They simply rebuild, re-equip, and persist. This quiet, unbroken will is the true character of the Republic. It is an immense, immovable weight of collective purpose. After the dust settles, a vast new territory is absorbed. The Mediterranean becomes Mare Nostrum, our sea. The simple farmer citizen finds himself a governor, a merchant, a legionary on distant shores. New wealth flows into the city. Beautiful marble replaces rough stone, and the quiet dignity of the early Republic begins to feel the strain of this immense prosperity. Julius Caesar and the fall of the Republic. The weight of empire begins to press down upon the old, venerable structures of the Republic. The air of the Forum is no longer one of quiet, shared duty, but of sharp, anxious tension. The vast new wealth has created deep divisions between the immensely rich and the newly landless poor. Breathe slowly and visualize a man whose name will forever mark this turning point, Gaius Julius Caesar. He steps into this tense, divided atmosphere with a graceful, assured stride. He is charismatic, a brilliant writer, and a general who commands the unwavering loyalty of his men. Follow him, in your mind's eye, far to the north, beyond the established borders, into the misty, deep forests of Gaul. The years of his campaigns there are a steady, deliberate accumulation of glory. Picture the quiet, ordered camps of his legions, the flickering light of countless campfires on the faces of battle-hardened soldiers who trust him more than they trust the distant Senate. He is far away, but the eyes of Rome are fixed on him. His ambition is a quiet, steady current that begins to pull against the moorings of the Republic. The Senate grows fearful. They order him to lay down his command. Now, we come to a quiet, epoch-making moment. It is a winter evening. Caesar stands at the bank of a small, shallow river that marks the boundary of Italy, the Rubicon. The sound is only the gentle lapping of the water, the low whinny of a horse, and the distant cry of a night bird. He pauses, looking across the water. This is the moment of no return. The words he would speak, alea acta est, the die is cast, are not a shout, but a low, firm declaration of destiny. Watch him step across the water. It is not a violent charge, but a slow, irrevocable entry. The ensuing civil conflict is tragic, the old friends of the Republic turning against one another. But through the dust of war, Caesar emerges, not as a king, but as a dictator, a title that carries the weight of sole authority. The light of his final years is brief, a brilliant, intense flash. He institutes widespread, sensible reforms, quieting the restless city. But the old ghost of the Republic, the hatred of any single ruler, lingers in the shadows of the Senate House. Feel the cold, marble stillness of that chamber. The day is the Ides of March. The atmosphere is heavy, thick with unresolved tension. The sudden violence is muffled, swift, and shocking. Let the sound fade to a low hum, focusing only on the slow realization of the senators. The republic they fought to save has died with the man they murdered. The assassins believed they were restoring liberty. Instead, they ushered in a final, long-lasting chaos that would end liberty forever. Augustus and the birth of the empire. The chaos of the final civil wars is a dark, churning ocean. Two figures rise and contend for the ultimate prize: the charismatic general Mark Antony and the young, shrewd heir of Caesar, Gaius Octavius. For a time, the empire holds its breath, waiting for the final decision of fate. The decisive moment arrives, not on the land, but in the gentle rocking of the sea. Picture the stillness of the waters near Actium. Feel the warm, salty breeze. The battle is a vast, slow-motion ballet of ships, and when the light of the final day clears, Octavian stands alone. The world is his. Take a calming breath as the young victor returns to Rome. The city is exhausted, weary of bloodshed, longing for order and a return to the quiet rhythm of life. Octavian understands this deep need perfectly. He does not announce himself as a king or an emperor. Instead, he masters the art of illusion. He carefully, gently, dismantles the Republic, but leaves its beautiful facade standing. He is merely the first citizen, the princeps. The Senate still meets, the elections are still held, but all power, silent and absolute, rests in the hands of this single, brilliant statesman. He takes the name Augustus, meaning revered one. Feel the atmosphere in Rome change. The transition is not harsh, but subtly transformative. Augustus begins a massive, quiet rebuilding. Picture the city. Buildings rise in gleaming white marble where mud bricks once stood. The streets are clean. The aqueducts flow with cool, fresh water. The air smells of cut stone, new plaster, and fresh flowers. This is the birth of the Roman Empire. It is founded not on overt military force, but on the silent, profound relief of a people who finally feel secure. Augustus's reign is long, careful, and deeply transformative. He creates a stable army, a civil service, and a deep sense of national identity that links the Roman people to their vast territory. Under his calm, steady hand, the empire settles into an immense, prolonged period of order. A profound quiet descends over the world, a deep, pervasive stillness that would last for 2 centuries. The golden age known as the Pax Romana. You are walking into this long, silent age of peace. The Pax Romana, the golden age of empire. This is the sweetheart of our journey, the quiet, golden centerpiece of Roman history. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, is a time of profound stillness, a gentle pause in the great rush of history, lasting from the time of Augustus to the reign of Marcus Aurelius. You are now standing in the living, breathing heart of the vast empire, and the air around you is soft, secure, and vibrant with commerce and culture. Imagine the immense network of Roman roads, smooth, perfectly engineered ribbons of stone stretching across continents, from the misty hills of Britain to the baking sands of Egypt. These roads are the arteries of peace, silently carrying not only legions, but merchants, ideas, and laws. Take a slow breath and visualize a day in Rome itself. The sounds are a comforting symphony of daily life. The rhythmic tap of a stonemason's hammer, the distant rush of water from a majestic aqueduct, the quiet murmur of Latin spoken in the marketplaces. The city is a masterpiece of public works. Gaze upon the immense Colosseum, not as a place of violence, but as a monument of architectural genius, its arches a perfect study in strength and grace. See the vast, steaming complex of the Baths of Caracalla, where citizens gather not just to cleanse their bodies, but to talk, read, and exercise in calm, communal tranquility. The great gift of this age is law. Feel the weight and fairness of the Roman legal codes, the slow, deliberate process of jurisprudence. This is Rome's most lasting, quiet legacy. The idea that society is governed not by the whim of a ruler, but by clear, rational, written rules. Look out across the peaceful Mediterranean. The ports are bustling, but the waters are safe. Grain flows from North Africa, silk from the distant east, wine and oil from Gaul and Spain. The Roman citizen, no matter where he lives, feels the steady, protective hand of the empire, a vast, silent engine of order and prosperity. The culture of the empire is a slow, quiet absorption. Greek philosophy and art blend with Roman pragmatism. Poets write of gentle country life. Historians meticulously record the quiet rise and fall of great men. Let the quiet permanence of this golden age settle over you like a warm blanket. This peace feels eternal, solid, and entirely unbreakable. Major emperors. Stability, brilliance, and private turmoil. Even in the profound stillness of the Pax Romana, the seat of power is filled by distinct, memorable personalities. Each emperor brings a different color, a different sound to the eternal city. The succession begins after the long, steady reign of Augustus, with his immediate family. You sense the shift in the quiet atmosphere. A subtle tension enters the palace walls. Tiberius, a brilliant general, rules with a private brooding reserve, eventually withdrawing to the silent, sun-drenched island of Caprita. Then for a time, the empire is gripped by a brief, vivid darkness. The name Nero echoes with a quiet tragedy. Listen not for the fire, but for the haunting music that was said to have accompanied it. The sound of an artist whose personal passions and artistic pursuits tragically eclipsed his duty to the state. Though his reign was short, his memory serves as a quiet warning about the perils of absolute power in the hands of the young and unchecked. The empire soon finds its footing again, entering its true apex with the 5 good emperors. Imagine the silent, vast stability of the world under Trajan, the soldier emperor whose calm gaze stretched the empire to its absolute greatest physical extent. Then, walk beside Hadrian, a man of profound intellect and restless curiosity. He does not seek conquest, but consolidation. Follow him, in your mind, to the misty northern frontier of Britannia. Feel the cold, damp air, and gaze upon the slow, deliberate construction of Hadrian's Wall, a monumental line of stone, a statement of permanence, marking the peaceful boundary of the Roman world. It is a symbol of a mature empire, one that defines its limits and protects what it has. The Golden Age culminates with the philosopher-emperor, Marcus Aurelius. His reign is marked by a deep, quiet introspection. Picture him late at night, in the stillness of his tent on the frontier, writing his meditations. The sound is only the gentle scratching of his pen. His words are a testament to Stoicism, the practice of maintaining a quiet inner tranquility amid the external chaos of life. He represents the ideal of a ruler, calm, dutiful, and deeply reflective. But even under his thoughtful hand, the first distant tremors of future trouble begin to shake the edges of the Pax Romana. The crisis of the 3rd century and the Great Transformation. The quiet, golden stillness of the Pax Romana shatters. Step across this threshold into a century of turmoil, a period where the very foundations of the empire seem to shift and shake. The air now feels brittle, charged with anxiety. This is the crisis of the 3rd century. The security of the frontiers crumbles. Imagine the low, urgent drumbeat of countless skirmishes, the sudden, sharp violence along the northern and eastern borders. The legions are constantly moving, fighting not for glory, but for sheer survival. Inside the empire, the quiet, centralized authority dissolves. Emperor follows emperor in swift, chaotic succession, a total of 26 rulers in 50 years. These are the barracks emperors, elevated and cast down by the restless, fearful legions. You sense the rapid change in the air, the deep instability that pervades every aspect of life. Trade falters, the currency loses its value, and the sense of order, the great gift of Rome, begins to slip away. This is a time of quiet, deep searching. The old Roman gods, symbols of stability, seem insufficient in this time of trouble. Into this spiritual void, a quiet, growing movement offers a new kind of comfort: Christianity. Picture the secrecy of the early congregations, the soft light of a single lamp in a hidden room, the low, comforting murmur of shared prayer. This is a faith not of grand temples and earthly power, but of community, hope, and the promise of peace in the face of suffering. It is a slow, quiet, profoundly influential revolution of the spirit, growing silently beneath the surface of the crisis. The turmoil is immense, but the empire is not ready to fall. It simply shifts, bends, and transforms. Diocletian and Constantine. Reform and the rise of Christianity. The moment of deepest crisis gives rise to the necessary saviors. The first is Diocletian, a man of immense will and ironclad logic. He looks upon the vast, unwieldy body of the empire and decides the only way to save it is to divide it. Visualize his immense reform: the Tetrarchy, the rule of 4. The empire is split into 2 halves, east and west, each ruled by a senior emperor, Augustus, and a junior emperor, Caesar. The air of the court becomes heavier, more formal, less Roman and more Eastern, designed to instill a sense of remote, untouchable authority. Feel the cold, hard logic of this administrative division, designed to better manage the immense borders. Diocletian retires, seeking a quiet life of growing cabbages, but the system of 4 men governing is inherently unstable. The final victor, the man who will reshape the future, is Constantine. The decisive moment arrives under a quiet, watchful sky before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. Focus on the stillness of that night. Legend tells of a vision, a sign in the heavens, that leads Constantine to adopt the Christian symbol. With his victory, the transformation is complete. Take a deep, gentle breath and feel the shift in the empire's soul. The Edict of Milan in 313 CE does not make Christianity the state religion, but it grants it legal tolerance. The persecution ends. The quiet gatherings in the shadows emerge into the light of day. The faith that began in secret now has the quiet, cautious patronage of the emperor. But the final act of transformation is the creation of a new Rome. Constantine chooses the ancient Greek city of Byzantium, a strategic, stunning location on the Bosporus. Watch as the new city rises, majestic and secure. When it is dedicated, he names it Constantinople, the city of Constantine. The heart of the empire, its memory, and its future, has quietly, irrevocably moved east. The division and the fall of the Western Roman Empire, 476 CE. The formal division of the empire into permanent eastern and western halves, in 395 CE, feels like a slow, quiet parting. Imagine 2 long-married partners, weary and distant, simply choosing separate paths. The air in the west is heavy with a sense of slow, inevitable decline. The West, with its capital eventually moved from Rome to the more defensible city of Ravenna, is continually beset by the slow, inexorable movement of peoples, the so-called barbarian tribes, pushed by vast forces from the east. These movements are less of a violent invasion and more of a slow creeping tide, a gradual resettlement of territory. Picture the Roman legions, once symbols of invincible order, growing thin, their ranks increasingly filled by the very people they were meant to keep out. The infrastructure, the magnificent roads, the aqueducts, the public buildings, begins to suffer the neglect of constant crisis. Feel the damp, cold air in the once grand western cities, now quieter, dimmer, retreating behind their walls. The end is not a cataclysm, but an anticlimax, a quiet extinguishing of a flickering lamp. In the year 476 CE, a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer simply deposes the last Western emperor, a boy ironically named Romulus Augustulus, a tiny echo of the founder and the first emperor. Odoacer does not claim the purple robes himself. He sends the imperial regalia, the symbols of power, back to Constantinople. It is a quiet, symbolic acknowledgement. The line of Western Roman emperors is finished. The Roman Empire, the immense force that began on the Palatine Hill, has not so much fallen as it has dissolved into its constituent parts, passing its claim to legitimacy, its very memory, to the East. In the West, the quiet process of change begins. The blending of Roman law and culture with the traditions of the new Germanic kingdoms. The lights dim in the West, but they do not go out. The language, the law, and the memory of Rome linger, sinking deep into the soil of Europe. The Byzantine Empire. 1,000 years of light. Step across the water to the east, into the enduring brilliance of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire. The air here is warmer, scented with spices and incense, and vibrant with an energy the West has lost. This empire is Roman, but profoundly changed, Greek in language, Orthodox Christian in faith, and intensely focused on the defense of its magnificent city. Imagine the immense, double-lined Theodosian walls, a quiet, unbreachable fortress of stone that stands watch for 1,000 years. The pinnacle of this era is the reign of Justinian in the 6th century. Feel the pulse of an attempted resurgence, a profound effort to recapture the lost glory of the West. His greatest, most lasting legacy is not military but intellectual, the quiet, meticulous compilation of the Corpus Juris Civilis, the codification of Roman law. This immense silent work is the ultimate Roman achievement, a perfect, rational structure of governance preserved for the future. Above all, gaze upon the stunning interior of the Hagia Sophia, the Church of Holy Wisdom. The light inside is not harsh, but diffused, golden and heavenly, reflecting off the vast, shimmering mosaics. Listen to the slow, deep chant of the Orthodox liturgy. This is a civilization defined by its faith, its law, and its imperial continuity. The centuries that follow are a slow, grinding defense against countless foes. The empire shrinks, but its core remains unyielding. It endures the rise of Islam, the invasions from the north, and, most tragically, the betrayal from the west during the Crusades. The sacking of Constantinople in 1204 CE by the very people who were meant to be its allies is a deep, quiet wound from which it never fully recovers. The light begins to fade, but the Roman memory holds fast. The final fall of Constantinople. The last breath, 1453 CE. The journey draws to its inevitable close. The final chapter of the Roman story is set on a single, fateful night in May of 1453. The vast, once shining empire has shrunk to its capital, a jewel encased in ancient, fading walls. The air in Constantinople is heavy, with a profound sense of doom, yet a quiet, resolute determination. Picture the last emperor, Constantine IX, standing atop the ancient walls. He is not a mighty emperor of the Pax Romana, but a solemn, dignified figure, sharing the final vigil with his few remaining soldiers, Greeks, Venetians, Genoese, all united by a memory of Rome. The sound is immense. the slow, grinding siege engines, the sharp crack of massive new cannon fire, a sound that signals the end of ancient warfare and the dawn of a new age. Let the noise soften and focus instead on the final moments inside the city. The last service is held in the Hagia Sophia. The light of countless candles flickers on the golden mosaics. The sound is the quiet, heartbreaking beauty of the final liturgy, a profound, deep connection to 1,000 years of faith and history. The end is swift. The walls are finally breached. The violence is a sudden, sharp shock, but let your mind settle immediately on the deep, enduring stillness that follows the noise. On the morning of May 29, 1453, the Roman Empire, in its Byzantine form, ceases to exist. The gates are closed on the vast, 2,206-year-old story. But history is not a simple ending. When the smoke clears, the scholars, the artists, the philosophers, and the texts of Byzantium quietly disperse across the sea, carrying their precious cargo, the wisdom of Greece and the laws of Rome, to the emerging West, fueling the very spark of the Renaissance. The empire is gone, but the legacy is secured. The legacy of Rome in memory and stone. Take a final, slow, deep breath and gently rise out of the historical moment. You are now standing back in the present, looking back across the vast river of time we have just crossed. The city of Rome, the empire of the Caesars, the majesty of Byzantium. It has all faded, yet it is all still here. Feel the profound, quiet weight of the Roman legacy beneath your feet. In law, listen to the slow, steady rhythm of the modern courtroom. The concepts of justice, due process, and the rights of the accused, they are the quiet, eternal echoes of Justinian's code. In language, open your mind to the soft sounds of French, Spanish, Italian, and Romanian. These are the beautiful, living descendants of Latin, the common tongue that stitched the empire together. Even the words we use now, Senate, Republic, Emperor, Citizen, are Roman ghosts that still structure our thought. In architecture, gaze upon the perfect arch, the immense dome, the solid, unyielding strength of concrete. This aesthetic of durable, useful beauty is Rome's gift to the permanent landscape of the world. The dream is finished, but the journey continues. You have walked through the great silence of history, a profound narrative of rise, endurance, and transformation. The Roman Empire lives not in stone and marble alone, but in the quiet, steady rhythm of order, law, and language that still guides our world. Let the final images fade, a tranquil river, an ancient wall, a silent scholar, and the warm, comforting scent of history preserved. The Roman Republic, Senatus Populesque Romanus. The air now feels different. It is charged with the measured cadence of debate and the solid presence of stone architecture. Take a gentle breath and step across the threshold, from legend into the early light of the Roman Republic. The removal of the last Tarquin king was not a sudden burst of anger, but a firm, quiet determination by the Roman people that power should never again rest completely in a single man's hands. You sense the profound gravity of this commitment. They were building something entirely new, built upon the bedrock of law and shared duty. You are now standing in the heart of this new world, the Forum Romanum. It is not yet the magnificent marble complex of the imperial age, but a bustling valley of practical, sober buildings. The ground beneath your feet is worn earth, transitioning slowly to rough paving stones. Close your eyes for a moment and listen deeply. You hear the slow, deliberate footsteps of men in simple togas, the rustle of papyrus scrolls being unrolled, the low, serious murmur of conversation. The atmosphere is one of profound, shared responsibility, a careful, almost suspicious distribution of authority. This is the era of the Senate and people of Rome. Senatus Populesque Romanus, or SPU per era. Allow that phrase to settle into your consciousness. A powerful, quiet acknowledgement that no one man rules. Power is a careful balance. First, there is the Senate. Picture this body, not of youthful, ambitious men, but of the elder statesmen, the former magistrates, the most respected heads of families, the patres. They gather in the curia, a space filled with a deep earthy scent of aging wood and solemn history. They do not legislate. They advise. Their power is one of tradition, wisdom, and immense prestige. Feel the weight of their gaze. These men are the anchors of the state, slow to change, firm in conviction. But the early republic understood that wisdom must be balanced by action. Each year, 2 men, the consuls, were elected. Imagine them, side by side, holding equal, supreme authority for 1 solar year. They led the armies, presided over the Senate, and administered the law. The essential feature is their duality. They checked one another, ensuring that no single individual could assume the power of a king. Their office was temporary, their accountability absolute. Yet, this careful structure did not rise without internal tension. The early republic was marked by the slow, grinding struggle between the patricians, the wealthy, aristocratic families, and the plebeians, the common citizens, the farmers, craftsmen, and traders. This conflict was not a swift, violent war, but a long, quiet process of political negotiation. You witnessed the moments of peaceful secession, where the plebeians would simply, quietly, abandon the city and gather on a nearby hill, refusing to work or fight until their grievances were addressed. Feel the quiet power of this non-violent protest. It led to the creation of the tribunes of the plebs, officials elected from the common people, imbued with the sacred power to halt or veto any Senate action they deemed harmful to the common citizen. This powerful word, veto, I forbid, is the sound of true political balance taking root. They also secured the codification of the laws, the 12 tables, chiseled onto bronze tablets and displayed publicly in the forum. No longer could law be arbitrary or hidden. It was fixed, clear, and visible to all. Feel the solid reassurance of these ancient laws, the first clear foundation of Roman jurisprudence. The air now feels different. It is charged with the measured cadence of debate and the solid presence of stone architecture. Take a gentle breath and step across the threshold, from legend into the early light of the Roman Republic. The removal of the last Tarquin king was not a sudden burst of anger, but a firm, quiet determination by the Roman people that power should never again rest completely in a single man's hands. You sense the profound gravity of this commitment. They were building something entirely new, built upon the bedrock of law and shared duty. You are now standing in the heart of this new world, the Forum Romanum. It is not yet the magnificent marble complex of the imperial age, but a busy sloping valley of practical, sober buildings. The ground beneath your feet is worn earth, transitioning slowly to rough paving stones. Close your eyes for a moment and listen deeply. You hear the slow, deliberate footsteps of men in simple, heavy wool togas, not the flowing, impractical garments of the empire, but robes of serious utility. You hear the rustle of papyrus scrolls being unrolled and the low, serious murmur of conversation. The atmosphere is one of profound, shared responsibility, a careful, almost suspicious distribution of authority. This is the era of the Senate and people of Rome, Senatus Populus Romanus, or SPQR. Allow that phrase to settle into your consciousness, a powerful, quiet acknowledgement that no one man rules. Power is a careful balance of prestige, action, and popular consent. First, there is the Senate. Picture this body, not of youthful, ambitious men, but of the elder statesmen, the former magistrates, the most respected heads of families, the patres. They gather in the curia, a space filled with a deep, earthy scent of aging wood, solemn history, and unmoving benches. They do not legislate. They advise, their power rooted entirely in tradition, and immense prestige. Feel the weight of their gaze. These men are the anchors of the state, slow to change, firm in conviction, drawing strength from the ancestors whose memory they honor. Their collective experience provides a quiet, steady hand that often outlasts the term limits of any single magistrate. But the early republic understood that wisdom must be balanced by action. Each year, 2 men, the consuls, were elected. Imagine them, side by side, holding equal, supreme authority for 1 solar year. They led the armies, presided over the Senate, and administered the law, their authority symbolized by the fasces, the bundles of rods carried by their lictors. The essential feature is their duality. They checked one another, ensuring that no single individual could assume the power of a king. Their office was temporary, their accountability absolute. They were forced to cooperate, to compromise, or to deadlock, and this tension was considered a virtue, a guarantor of liberty, the quiet strength of the plebeian struggle. Yet, this careful structure did not rise without internal tension. The early republic was marked by the slow, grinding struggle between the patricians, the wealthy, aristocratic families, and the plebeians, the common citizens, the backbone of the army and the economy. This conflict was not a swift, violent war, but a long, quiet process of political negotiation and profound persistence. You witnessed the moments of peaceful secession, where the plebeians would simply, quietly abandon the city and gather on the nearby Aventine Hill, refusing to work or fight until their grievances were addressed. Feel the quiet power of this non-violent protest, a demonstration of collective withdrawal. This act, repeated several times, forced the elite to concede power. It led to the creation of the tribunes of the plebs, officials elected from the common people, wearing the simple dress of the working man. They were declared sacrosanct. Their persons were inviolable, protected by a religious oath. They were imbued with the sacred power to halt, or veto, I forbid, any Senate action or consular decree they deemed harmful to the common citizen. This powerful word is the sound of true political balance taking root, a quiet check against aristocracy. The plebeians also secured the codification of the laws, the 12 tables, chiseled onto massive bronze tablets and displayed publicly in the forum. No longer could law be arbitrary or hidden. It was fixed, clear, and visible to all. Feel the solid reassurance of these ancient laws, the first clear, written foundation of Roman jurisprudence, ensuring that justice was blind and accessible. The unwavering advance and the disciplined farmer. As the internal structures solidified, the external world began to test Rome's resolve. The early Roman citizen was first and foremost a farmer, a patriot, and a soldier. His greatest virtue was pietas, a sense of duty to his gods, his family, and the state. He carried his plow and his sword with equal devotion, returning to his small farm, the Heredium, after every campaign. Picture the early Roman army. They move with a slow, disciplined rhythm, a deliberate, patient advance in the maniple formation, a checkerboard pattern that allowed for immense flexibility and continuous reinforcement. This is not the wild charge of the barbarian, but the measured, relentless step of the legion. Visualize the shining bronze of their helmets, the large rectangular scutum shield, and the short, deadly gladius. They are not merely fighters, they are engineers, builders, and logistical masters. Every night, no matter how tired, they build a fortified, perfect camp, a temporary square city of earthworks and wooden palisades, demonstrating their unwavering belief in order over chaos. They absorb their neighbors not by crushing them entirely, but by drawing them into a sophisticated network of alliances and obligations. The gift Rome offered was citizenship, a path to inclusion, a share in the immense enterprise, sometimes full, sometimes restricted, but always a promise of eventual belonging. This quiet, strategic inclusivity ensures that when Rome faces a true test, she is not alone, but supported by the manpower and resources of a unified Italian peninsula. The steady willingness to integrate, rather than merely subjugate, is a key to Rome's enduring strength. The Punic Wars, testing the soul of the Republic. Then, the world grows larger, and the stakes become immense. The Republic now faces a power equal to its own, a maritime empire across the sea. Carthage, the magnificent city on the coast of North Africa. The air thickens with the salt tang of the Mediterranean. This is where Rome learns the true meaning of enduring commitment and the deep, dark necessity of naval power. The struggle stretches across more than a century, a slow, grinding, existential conflict known as the Punic Wars. The First Punic War is a clumsy, decade-long scramble for control of the island of Sicily. Rome, a land-based power, had no navy to speak of. Yet, with quiet, terrifying determination, they built one, copying a captured Carthaginian design. Imagine the vast shipyards, the smell of fresh-cut pine and hot pitch, the frantic, focused energy of men learning to row and fight upon the unfamiliar rocking waves. This ability to adapt and persist defines the Roman spirit. But the ultimate test comes with the Second Punic War. Breathe slowly and visualize the immense, formidable shadow of the Carthaginian general, Hannibal Barca. He's a military genius whose ambition fills the entire Roman world with dread. Follow him, in your mind's eye, across the vast span of the Alps. The journey is not a battle, but an odyssey, a quiet, freezing, monumental feat of logistics. Picture the slow, terrible beauty of that crossing. The snow-capped peaks, the bone-chilling cold, the massive, silent shapes of the war elephants, picking their way across the narrow, icy passes. This is the moment Rome's endurance is truly challenged. Hannibal wins overwhelming, decisive victories at the Tiber River, at Lake Trasimene, and most devastatingly, at Cannae. In this quiet moment, feel the immense sadness and shock that settles upon the Roman psyche. At Cannae, 70,000 Romans lay dead. It is a loss that should have broken the Republic entirely. But here is the quiet, magnificent strength of Rome. The Senate does not panic. They do not sue for peace. They simply state, "We rebuild. We persist." They refuse to treat with the enemy while he stands on Italian soil. The citizens endure austerity with a profound, nationalistic quietude. Hannibal, trapped by the vastness of the land he had conquered, and unable to besiege the mighty walls of Rome itself, spends years wandering, his strength slowly leaching away. The final stroke comes from the young Roman general, Scipio Africanus, who dares to take the war to Carthage itself. Feel the subtle shift in momentum, the quiet return of Roman confidence. The final, decisive battle at Zama ends the threat forever. The dust settles. The immense cost is clear, but the gain is immeasurable. Rome is no longer merely an Italian power. She is the undisputed mistress of the West. The Mediterranean becomes Mare Nostrum, or sea. The seeds of change and the growing shadow. The victory brings not only security, but a torrent of change. New wealth, slaves, and grain flow into the city. The simple, small-scale farming life that was the foundation of the citizen soldier begins to collapse. Rich elites buy up vast tracts of land, creating immense estates worked by slaves, the latifundia. The simple farmer citizen finds himself displaced, landless, drifting to Rome, swelling the ranks of the urban poor. The air in the city is no longer one of simple, shared purpose, but of growing tension and immense inequality. The old structures of the Senate, designed to govern a small city-state, creak under the weight of an immense empire stretching from Spain to Greece. Two earnest, principled figures, the Gracchi brothers, Tiberius and Gaius, try to gently pull the Republic back to its ethical roots, proposing modest land reforms to benefit the displaced poor. Listen for the sound of their earnest voices speaking to the assemblies. Yet, their efforts are met with brutal, quiet resistance from the entrenched senatorial elite. Their tragic end marks a grim new precedent. Political disputes are now settled not by debate and law, but by violence in the streets of Rome. The rule of law, the sacred foundation of the Republic, is beginning to fracture. The slow, steady pressure of empire required massive, professional armies, men who served for 20 years, far from their farms. Generals like Marius and Sulla rose, and in seeking to gain loyalty, they offered rewards not from the state, but from their personal fortunes. The loyalty of the soldier quietly shifted from the Republic to the general. Feel the ominous weight of this change. The Republic, so long defended by law and shared duty, is now held together by the personal ambitions and armies of a few powerful men. The stage is being set for the final, slow-motion collapse and the emergence of the one man who would dare to claim it all, Gaius Julius Caesar. The light fades slowly over the forum. The great ideals of the Republic, duty, law, and balance, are slipping into the shadows, making way for a destiny far more centralized, far more brilliant, and tragically, far more singular. Julius Caesar and the fall of the Republic. The weight of empire begins to press down upon the old, venerable structures of the Republic. The air of the Forum is no longer one of quiet, shared duty, but of sharp, anxious tension. The vast new wealth has created deep divisions between the immensely rich landowning aristocracy and the newly landless, urban poor. The stability granted by law is now overwhelmed by the volatility of personal ambition. Breathe slowly and visualize a man whose name will forever mark this turning point, a name that will echo down through history as a title for rulers: Gaius Julius Caesar. He steps into this tense, divided atmosphere with a graceful, assured stride. He possesses immense charm, a quick, brilliant intellect, and a profound, intuitive understanding of power. He knows how to speak to the people, how to charm the elite, and most critically, how to command the unwavering loyalty of the common soldier. His rise is slow, measured, and strategic, a masterpiece of political maneuvering and self-promotion. He aligns himself with two other great powers, the immensely wealthy Crassus and the brilliant general Pompey the Great. This alliance, a quiet, unofficial arrangement, allows him to secure the one thing he truly needed to build his legend: a vast, unassailable military command. The forests of Gaul. Follow him, in your mind's eye, far to the north, beyond the established borders, into the misty, deep, primeval forests of Gaul, modern France. The years of his campaigns, there are a steady, deliberate accumulation of glory. Imagine the environment: the cold, damp earth, the tall, silent trees, the constant challenge of logistics in a wild land. Picture the quiet, ordered camps of his legions. Feel the sense of absolute discipline and unwavering morale. The flickering light of countless campfires casts long shadows on the faces of his battle-hardened soldiers. They trust Caesar implicitly. He walks among them, remembers their names, shares their hardships, and above all, ensures they are immensely rewarded. This loyalty, forged in the cold mud and blood of battle, is the quiet, unbreakable weapon that will ultimately dismantle the Republic. His campaigns are meticulous. He writes his own history, the commentaries on the Gallic War, with a clear, steady prose. He is far away, but the eyes of Rome are fixed on him. Each victory, each extension of Roman territory, quietly strengthens his claim to power. The Senate, meanwhile, grows fearful of this brilliant popular general whose success is dwarfing their own authority. They are stuck in Rome, debating the finer points of tradition, while Caesar is conquering a continent. The threshold of destiny. Caesar's ambition is a quiet, steady current that begins to pull irresistibly against the moorings of the Republic. As his command draws to a close, the fearful Senate, led by his increasingly paranoid former ally, Pompey, orders him to lay down his command, dismiss his armies, and return to Rome as a private citizen. The demand is a trap. To return defenseless is to face trial and ruin. Now, we arrive at a quiet, epoch-making moment. It is a winter evening, the year is 49 BCE. Caesar stands at the bank of a small, shallow river that marks the boundary of Italy itself, the Rubicon. This river is the sacred line. To cross it with an army is an act of war against the state, an irrevocable decision. Focus your attention entirely on the sensory details of this single freezing moment. The sound is only the gentle lapping of the water against the muddy bank, the low whinny of a restless horse, and the distant, lonely cry of a night bird. The cold air catches your breath. Caesar pauses, looking across the dark water toward the light of the distant Roman world. He is deciding the fate of the Republic, and perhaps the shape of the next 2 millennia. He does not rush. He weighs the options. This is the moment of no return. The words he would utter, alea acta est, the die is cast, are not a triumphant shout, but a low, firm declaration of destiny, a philosophical acceptance of an irreversible course of action. Watch him step into the shallow water. It is not a violent charge, but a slow, irrevocable entry. His men follow, their steady footfall sounding heavy on the river stones. The crossing itself is unremarkable, yet it is the most important single step in the history of the Republic. The brief, intense light of dictatorship. The ensuing civil conflict is tragic, a prolonged, unnecessary struggle that sees the old friends of the Republic turning against one another. Pompey, the stalwart defender of the Senate, eventually falls in Egypt. Caesar emerges, not as a king, but as a dictator, a title that originally meant a temporary emergency ruler, but which he claimed indefinitely, then for life. This title carries the weight of sole, unchallenged authority, the very thing the Republic had been founded to prevent. The light of his final years is brief, a brilliant, intense flash. He wields his singular power effectively, focusing on the deep, quiet needs of the empire. He institutes widespread, sensible reforms. He cancels crippling debts, settles landless veterans, and initiates a massive, effective public works program. He reforms the confusing, chaotic calendar, giving us the steady, reliable Julian calendar that structures our days even now. He brings order and competence back to a weary, anxious city. But the old ghost of the Republic, the deep, abiding Roman hatred of Rex, king or single, unchecked power, lingers in the shadows of the Senate House. Many, who hated the idea of monarchy more than they loved Caesar, began to quietly plot his downfall. The Ides of March. Feel the cold, marble stillness of that chamber, the Senate, meeting temporarily in the portico of Pompey. The day is the Ides of March, 44 BCE. The atmosphere is heavy, thick with unresolved tension, a quiet fear mixed with desperate hope. Visualize Caesar entering, brushing aside the small warnings, assuming the safety of his immense prestige. He takes his seat at the center of the chamber, surrounded by hundreds of senators. The sudden, shocking violence is muffled and swift, a flurry of short, sharp movements and whispers. Let the sound fade to a low, distant hum. Focus only on the profound stillness that descends the moment the deed is done. Caesar falls, not beneath the walls of a foreign city, but at the feet of a statue of his former friend and rival, Pompey. The immediate aftermath is a silence deeper than death. The conspirators stand over the body, holding their bloody daggers, believing they have restored liberty. They rush out into the forum, shouting their triumph, expecting to be hailed as heroes. But the city does not cheer. It is struck dumb, then gripped by confusion and paralyzing fear. The assassins believed they were restoring the Republic. Instead, they had merely murdered its only guarantee of stability. They had ushered in a final, long-lasting chaos that would end the Free State forever. The tragic irony is complete. In killing Caesar to save the Republic, they proved that only one man's personal power, the kind of power Caesar possessed, could hold the vast empire together. The Roman world recoiled from the violence, longing desperately for the return of quiet, ordered government. The power vacuum left behind is terrifying. The stage is now set for a final, grinding war for succession, a conflict that will finally absolutely determine that Rome's destiny lies not with the Senate, but with a single, absolute ruler. That ruler will be the young, quiet, immensely shrewd heir of Caesar, Octavius. Augustus and the birth of the empire. The chaos of the final civil wars is a dark, churning ocean. The sharp, bitter taste of political violence lingers in the Roman air. Two figures rise and contend for the ultimate prize: the charismatic general and companion of Caesar, Mark Antony, and the quiet, disciplined, and immensely shrewd heir of Caesar, Gaius Octavius. For a time, the empire holds its breath, waiting for the final decision of fate. The world watches as the two men carve up the Roman sphere of influence. Antony in the rich, ancient East, tied to the magnificence of Queen Cleopatra. Octavian in the pragmatic, methodical West. This division is simply a pause before the final, inevitable collision. The decisive moment arrives, not on the land, but in the gentle rocking of the sea. Picture the stillness of the waters near Actium on the western coast of Greece. Feel the warm, salty breeze and the subtle, nervous tension that hangs over the vast fleets. The battle, though messy and prolonged, ends with the quiet, overwhelming victory of Octavian's forces. When the light of the final day clears, Octavian stands alone. The deaths of Antony and Cleopatra in Egypt soon follow, sealing the fate of the Republic. The entire world, stretched from the Atlantic to the Euphrates, is his. The year is 30 BCE. Take a calming breath as the young victor returns to Rome. The city is utterly exhausted, bone-weary of bloodshed, longing desperately for stability and a return to the quiet rhythm of daily life. The people do not crave liberty, they crave order. Octavian understands this deep, pervasive need perfectly. He is not a charismatic warrior like Caesar, but a consummate statesman, a master of illusion and quiet control. He knows that to declare himself king would invite the dagger. He must rule absolutely, yet appear to restore the Republic. The first citizen, Princeps. He approaches the task with cautious brilliance. In a series of slow, deliberate gestures starting in 27 BCE, he gradually, gently dismantles the Republic, but leaves its beautiful facade standing. He returns all his extraordinary powers to the Senate and the people. The Senate, knowing the true source of power, is relieved and immediately begs him to take them back. He accepts, but only on his own terms. He does not announce himself as a king or an emperor. Instead, he adopts the modest title of first citizen, the Princeps. The Senate still meets, the elections are still technically held, the consuls still serve their term. But all real power, the command of the armies, the control of the provinces, the authority to pass and veto laws, silent and absolute, rests in the hands of this single brilliant statesman. He carefully accumulates the key powers of the Republic's highest offices. He is granted tribunician power, the power of the plebeian tribune, giving him sacrosanctity and the power to veto, and proconsular power, the power of a governor, giving him command of the armies. This is a masterful display of control through subtle redefinition. In a moment of profound significance, the Senate bestows upon him the name Augustus, meaning revered one, a term that suggests profound religious and social authority rather than mere political power. Feel the atmosphere in Rome change. The transition is not harsh, but subtly transformative. The anxiety dissolves into a deep, pervasive relief. The quiet rebuilding of Rome. Augustus begins a massive, quiet rebuilding program. His famous boast was that he found Rome, a city of brick, and left it a city of marble. Visualize the transformation. Where mud bricks and rough stone once stood, grand, gleaming white marble structures now rise. The streets are paved and cleaned, the aqueducts flow with cool, fresh water, and beautiful new temples are quietly dedicated. The air smells of cut stone, fresh plaster, and the deep earthy scent of new construction. This stability is not merely superficial, it is an economic and moral renewal. He restores traditional Roman virtues, duty, simplicity, and family structure, not through force, but through patronage and example. This period is marked by a sudden, intense flourishing of the arts, known as the Augustan Age. Imagine the great poets, Virgil and Horace, sitting in shaded courtyards, quietly composing verses that praise the peace and the return to order. The literature is infused with a deep, quiet gratitude for the cessation of civil war, the foundation of the imperial order. This is the secure, lasting birth of the Roman Empire. It is founded not on overt military force, but on the silent, profound relief of a people who finally feel secure. Augustus's reign is exceptionally long, careful, and deeply transformative, setting the pattern for 2 centuries of stable rule. He creates a stable, professional army, fixing the legions on the frontiers to protect the borders, rather than letting them fight for generals in civil wars. He establishes a permanent, professional civil service, administering the immense territories with efficiency and quiet competence. The boundary of the empire settles, primarily along the great rivers, the Rhine and the Danube. After a devastating defeat in the Teutoburg forest in Germany, Augustus wisely recognized the limits of Roman power and quietly stopped the expansion. The mission was no longer unending conquest, but consolidation and security. The final tranquility. Augustus, the first emperor, the quiet architect of this new world, dies peacefully in 14 CEA. His death is not followed by civil war, but by the quiet, orderly accession of his chosen heir, Tiberius. This seamless transfer of power is the final, greatest testament to Augustus's genius. He did not pass on a title, he passed on a system, a framework of quiet authority disguised as tradition. The empire settles into an immense, prolonged period of order. A profound quiet descends over the entire Roman world, a deep, pervasive stillness that would last for nearly 2 centuries. The Golden Age, known as the Pax Romana. As you prepare to move into this golden era, feel the sense of permanence and order that Augustus bequeathed. He ended a century of chaos and replaced it with 1,000 years of centralized rule. He gave Rome what it desperately needed: one man, quiet and absolute, holding all the strings of power, allowing the rest of the world to rest. You are walking into this long, silent age of peace, where the grand project of Roman civilization will reach its absolute zenith. The Pax Romana, the Golden Age of Empire. This is the sweetheart of our journey, the quiet, golden centerpiece of Roman history. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, is not merely a span of years, but a profound, sustained stillness, a gentle, immense pause in the great rush of history, lasting for over 200 years, from the time of Augustus to the reign of Marcus Aurelius. You are now standing in the living, breathing heart of the vast empire, and the air around you is soft, secure, and vibrant with commerce and culture. Feel the pervasive, quiet assurance that the borders are protected, that the law is just, and that tomorrow will look very much like today. This certainty is the greatest gift of the peace. The arteries of empire, roads and sea. Imagine the immense network of Roman roads, smooth, perfectly engineered ribbons of stone stretching across continents, from the misty hills of Britain to the baking sands of Egypt. They are straight, built for endurance, and they are the true arteries of this era. These roads are the silent veins of peace, carrying not only legions when needed, but more often, merchants, ideas, and the codified laws of Rome. You hear the rhythmic clip-clop of mule hooves on the pavement, the low creak of heavy wooden carts carrying goods, and the cheerful, constant flow of communication that ties the vast territory together. Look out across the peaceful Mediterranean Sea. The waters are safe. Piracy has been largely extinguished. This enormous body of water, which connects 3 continents, has truly become Mare Nostrum, or sea. Picture the slow, broad sails of grain ships, wine barges, and timber carriers moving unmolested between vast, busy ports like Alexandria, Ostia, and Carthage. Grain flows from North Africa to feed Rome. Silk comes from the distant east, and wine and oil are shipped from Gaul and Spain. The sheer scale of this quiet international commerce underpins the stability of the age. A day in the city. Take a slow breath and visualize a day in Rome itself, the capital of this stable world. The air is warm, dry, and filled with a comforting symphony of daily life. The sounds are distinct. The rhythmic tap of a stonemason's hammer, the distant rush and steady splash of water from a majestic aqueduct, the low, educated murmur of Latin spoken in the marketplaces and libraries. The sun warms the vast, smooth marble surfaces. Gaze upon the immense architectural achievements. The Forum is now not a muddy meeting place, but a stunning integrated civic center. See the mighty arches of the Colosseum, not primarily as a place of violence, but as a monument of architectural genius, its tiered seating and perfect arches a study in strength and grace. The concrete, Rome's hidden invention, allows them to shape space with astonishing ambition. Now, follow the gentle current of daily life toward the immense, steaming complex of the baths. These are not merely places to cleanse the body. They are communal centers of tranquility. Feel the damp, warm air. Listen to the low echoes of conversation in the tepidarium, warm room, and the splash of water in the frigidarium, cold plunge. Citizens gather here to talk philosophy, read aloud, exercise, and discuss politics. A quiet, democratic ritual of Roman society, open to almost all. The single greatest gift of this age, the quietest and most enduring, is law. Feel the solid strength and fairness of the Roman legal codes, the slow, deliberate, rational process of jurisprudence. The Roman judge sought not quick vengeance, but balanced justice. This is the central Roman achievement. The idea that society is governed not by the whim of a ruler or the arbitrary decree of a priest, but by clear, rational, written rules. The jus, this vast, meticulous body of law, establishes precedents, defines property rights, and structures the very relationship between the individual and the state. It is a quiet, intellectual structure built to last, the invisible architecture of civilization itself. The culture of the empire is one of slow, quiet absorption and pragmatism. Roman pragmatism blends beautifully with the refined philosophy and art inherited from Greece. Poets like Virgil, long after Augustus, continue to write of gentle country life and the idealized virtues of the farmer. Historians like Tacitus record the quiet, serious lessons of the past. Education is valued highly. Libraries are stocked with scrolls, and learning is a quiet, continuous process, ensuring the administration and intellectual life of the empire remain vigorous. The vast territory is stitched together not by force, but by a shared identity. The Roman citizen, whether he lives in London, Lyon, or Leptis Magna, feels the steady, protective hand of the empire. He speaks Latin in the marketplace. He benefits from Roman roads and law, and he knows that the legions stand watch for him. It is a vast, silent engine of order and prosperity. This golden age is the height of Roman self-confidence. The Pax Romana feels eternal, solid, and utterly unbreakable. The challenges of the past, civil war and foreign enemies, seem like distant history. The world has settled into a deep, comfortable rhythm, a hypnotic stillness that allows for profound cultural flourishing. But the emperors themselves, who oversee this great peace, vary wildly in temperament and character. Even in this long, sunny noon of the empire, the quiet dangers of unchecked, hereditary power will occasionally surface to threaten the tranquility. The quiet stability of the system will soon be tested by the very men entrusted to uphold it. Major emperors, stability, brilliance, and private turmoil. Even in the profound stillness of the Pax Romana, the seat of power is filled by distinct, memorable personalities. The transition of the empire from a republic to a hereditary monarchy meant that the entire world's stability hinged upon the character of one man. Each emperor brings a different color, a different sound, and a different internal tension to the eternal city. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, the weight of heritage. The succession begins after the long, steady reign of Augustus with his immediate family, the Julio-Claudian dynasty. You sense the shift in the quiet atmosphere, a subtle, familial tension that creeps into the palace walls. The challenge now is not external war, but the immense, unnatural pressure of absolute power operating within the confines of a single, powerful family line. The first successor is Tiberius, a brilliant general, stepson to Augustus. He inherits a secure state, yet he rules with a private, brooding reserve. His is a cautious, deeply frugal hand, ensuring the treasury remains full and the borders quiet. Picture him as a man of immense duty, but little joy. His temperament was ill-suited to the political theater of Rome, where every word and gesture was scrutinized. He eventually withdraws almost completely from the city, seeking the profound silence of the sun-drenched, rugged island of Capri. Imagine the quiet, isolated villas built high on the cliffs, overlooking the vast blue expanse of the Tyrrhenian Sea. Here, the governance of the empire continues, but the heart of the government in Rome feels distant, anxious, and suspicious under the direction of his prefects. The dynasty continues, marked by brief flashes of instability. The empire endures the short, frightening rule of Caligula, a man whose power quickly overwhelmed his reason. Then, the scholarly, awkward Claudius takes the throne, a man more comfortable in the library than the public spotlight. Yet, his quiet, bureaucratic competence expanded the empire into Britain and established a crucial professional civil service filled with freedmen, transforming administration from a private game into a managed state affair. He gave Rome the quiet gift of efficient paperwork. Then, for a time, the empire is gripped by a brief, vivid darkness in the form of Nero. Listen not for the violence, which we avoid, but for the haunting music and theatrical pursuits that consumed him. He was an artist who desired applause above all things. He oversaw vast, expensive building projects, including his famous Domus Aurea, the Golden House. Feel the atmosphere of extravagant, reckless spending and profound artistic obsession that marks his reign. He represents a quiet tragedy, the peril of absolute power in the hands of a young, artistic soul whose personal passions eclipsed his duty to the immense, sober state. His memory serves as a quiet warning about the constant need for restraint within the palace walls. The death of Nero brings the first major rupture since Augustus, the year of the four emperors, 69 CE. It is a rapid, jarring period of instability where four different men claimed the purple robes. It proves that Augustus's system was fragile, but also that the empire itself, the laws, the legions, and the civil structure, was robust enough to survive even a temporary civil war among its leaders. The Flavians and the Age of Consolidation. Stability returns with the rise of the Flavian dynasty, beginning with Vespasian. He is a soldier, a plain-speaking man from a humble background, who brings a pragmatic, common-sense order back to Rome. His reign is characterized by practical rebuilding after Nero's fire and financial discipline. His most visible legacy is a quiet statement of Roman renewal and public commitment. The construction of the Flavian amphitheater, known to us as the Colosseum. Feel the deliberate massiveness of this structure, built on the site of Nero's private lake, symbolizing a return of public space to the people. It is a structure built not for extravagance, but for the utility of immense shared gatherings. His son, Titus, oversaw the dedication of the Colosseum and was beloved for his gentle, brief rule, a calm moment tragically cut short. His short reign is also marked by the immense, heartbreaking stillness that descended over the buried cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum after the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, a quiet, devastating reminder of nature's power against Roman permanence. The 5 good emperors, the golden apex. The empire now enters its true apex under the 5 good emperors, a period where succession was achieved not by birthright, but by adoption of the most capable, respected man. This practice of selecting the best possible heir, rather than simply the son, gave the empire its greatest period of quiet stability and competent rule. Imagine the immense security and calm stability of the world under Trajan, the first emperor from the provinces, Spain. He is the soldier emperor, yet his gaze is one of strategic prudence. His is the reign where the empire reached its absolute greatest physical extent. Feel the quiet pride of this achievement, pushing the boundaries far into Dacia, modern Romania, and briefly into Mesopotamia. Yet, his greatest memorial is not a battlefield, but a column in Rome. Trajan's column, a slow, spiraling narrative of his Dacian campaigns, celebrating the discipline and engineering genius of the Roman army. Then, walk beside Hadrian, a man of profound intellect, deep Greek learning, and restless curiosity. He is the emperor who says enough. He recognizes that the empire is overstretched, and his rule is one of consolidation, fortification, and defined limits. Follow him, in your mind, to the misty northern frontier of Britannia. Feel the cold, damp air, and gaze upon the slow, deliberate construction of Hadrian's Wall, a monumental line of stone, a profound statement of permanence and boundary. It is a symbol of a mature empire, one that defines its limits, protects what it has built, and retreats from impossible expansion. He travels tirelessly, inspecting every corner of his vast dominion, tying the provinces closer to the heart of Rome. The quiet, gentle rule continues with Antoninus Pius, a man of peace and immense civic piety. His reign is so tranquil, so profoundly calm, that almost nothing dramatic is recorded, a testament to the perfect functioning of the state. He is the image of the benevolent, passive father of the people. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king. The Golden Age culminates with the philosopher emperor, Marcus Aurelius. His reign is marked by a deep, quiet introspection, a powerful sense of duty, and a profound sadness. He is the reluctant ruler, the man who would rather be studying philosophy than commanding armies. Picture him, late at night, in the stillness of his tent on the cold northern frontier, the distant sound of barbarian threats muffled by the canvas. He is writing his meditations. The sound is only the gentle scratching of his pen against the wax tablet. His words are a testament to stoicism, the quiet practice of maintaining inner tranquility, controlling one's own judgment, and fulfilling one's duty to the vast community, regardless of external suffering. His rule is the ideal, calm, dutiful, deeply reflective, and committed to justice. He embodies the Platonic ideal of the philosopher king. However, even under his thoughtful hand, the first distant tremors of future trouble begin to shake the edges of the Pax Romana. The plague returns, cutting swathes through the population, and the pressure on the Danube frontier becomes immense. The peace is challenged for the first time by forces too large and too numerous to easily contain. And tragically, Marcus Aurelius breaks the chain of adopted succession, choosing his biological son, Commodus, as his heir. Commodus, a man obsessed with the arena and his own divinity, is the final, reckless flare of the Golden Age. His chaotic rule, though short, breaks the spell of the Pax Romana. With his assassination, the era of stable, adopted succession is over. The empire, weakened by plague and external pressure, must now confront a period of profound uncertainty. The immense peace and order will soon be replaced by the sharp, terrifying anxiety of constant crisis. This is the sweetheart of our journey, the quiet, golden centerpiece of Roman history. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, is not merely a span of years, but a profound, sustained stillness, a gentle, immense pause in the great rush of history, lasting for over 200 years, from the time of Augustus to the reign of Marcus Aurelius. You are now standing in the living, breathing heart of the vast empire, and the air around you is soft, secure, and vibrant with commerce and culture. Feel the pervasive, quiet assurance that the borders are protected, that the law is just, and that tomorrow will look very much like today. This deep-seated certainty that the state will endure and protect is the greatest, most precious gift of the peace. The arteries of empire, roads and sea. Imagine the immense network of Roman roads, smooth, perfectly engineered ribbons of stone stretching across continents, from the misty hills of Britain to the baking sands of Egypt. These roads are often sunken, flanked by mile markers and funerary monuments, a testament to permanence and duty. They are the true arteries of this golden era. These roads are the silent veins of peace, carrying not only the necessary legions, but also the constant flow of merchants, ideas, and the codified laws of Rome. You hear the rhythmic clip-clop of mule hooves on the pavement, the low creak of heavy wooden carts carrying goods, and the cheerful, constant flow of communication that ties the vast territory together. Along these roads stand the mansiones and mutationes, the staging posts and changing stations, organized by the state for travelers, ensuring swift, reliable travel, a concept almost forgotten by the rest of the world. Look out across the peaceful Mediterranean Sea. The waters are safe. Piracy has been largely extinguished. This enormous body of water, connecting 3 continents, has truly become Mare Nostrum, or sea. Picture the slow, broad sails of Corbetta grain ships, wine barges, and timber carriers, moving unmolested between vast, busy ports like Ostia, the port of Rome, and the monumental harbors of Alexandria and Carthage. The enormous volume of peaceful, international commerce underpins the stability of the age, allowing localized famines to be averted and specialized goods to reach every corner of the empire. Take a slow breath and visualize a day in Rome itself, the capital of this stable world. The air is warm, dry, and filled with a comforting symphony of daily life. The sounds are distinct. The rhythmic tap of a stonemason's hammer, the distant rush and steady splash of water from a majestic aqueduct, the low, educated murmur of Latin spoken in the marketplaces and libraries. The sun warms the vast, smooth marble surfaces of the newly adorned city. Gaze upon the immense architectural achievements. The Forum is now not a muddy meeting place, but a stunning, integrated civic center, the beating heart of the world. See the mighty arches of the Colosseum, its towering structure a masterpiece of tiered seating and perfect arches, demonstrating strength and grace. The hidden invention of Roman concrete allows them to shape vast monumental spaces, building structures that settle deep into the earth, enduring the centuries. Now, focus on a more subtle achievement, the flow of water. Trace the path of the aqueducts that bring pure, cool water from the distant hills. This water fills the immense, steaming complex of the baths. Feel the damp, warm air, and listen to the low echoes of conversation in the tepidarium, warm room, and the splash of water in the frigidarium, cold plunge. These are communal centers of tranquility, where citizens gather not just to cleanse, but to talk philosophy, read aloud in the libraries, and discuss politics, a quiet, democratic ritual of Roman society, open to almost all, fostering a deep sense of shared civilization. In the private domus of the wealthy, the light filters through the atrium into the cool, quiet central courtyard. The scent of olive oil lamps and perhaps soft perfume lingers in the air. For the vast majority, life is lived in the multi-story insulae apartment buildings, where the smells of wood smoke, baking bread, and the noise of neighbors are constant companions, but always against the backdrop of an ordered city. The enduring legacy of law, the single greatest gift of this age, the quietest and most enduring, is law. Feel the solid strength and fairness of the Roman legal codes, the slow, deliberate, rational process of jurisprudence. The Roman judge sought not quick vengeance, but balanced justice based on reasoned principles and precedent. This is the central Roman achievement, The idea that society is governed not by the whim of a ruler or the arbitrary decree of a priest, but by clear, rational, written rules. This vast, meticulous body of law establishes precedents, defines property rights, and structures the very relationship between the individual and the state. It is a quiet, intellectual structure built to last, the invisible architecture of civilization itself. This system provided a quiet predictability that was essential for business, travel, and peace. Culture and identity. The culture of the empire is one of slow, quiet absorption and pragmatism. Roman pragmatism blends beautifully with the refined philosophy and art inherited from Greece. The children of the elite are often educated by Greek tutors, creating a powerful, sophisticated fusion. Poets and scholars, long after the Augustan age, continue their quiet work in libraries and villas. Education is highly valued. Libraries are stocked with thousands of papyrus scrolls, and learning is a quiet, continuous process, ensuring the administration and intellectual life of the empire remain vigorous. The vast territory is stitched together not by force, but by a powerful, shared identity. The Roman citizen, whether he lives in London, Lyon, or Leptis Magna, feels the steady, protective hand of the empire. He speaks Latin in the marketplace, benefits from Roman roads and law, and knows that the legions stand watch for him. It is a vast, silent engine of order and prosperity. This golden age is the height of Roman self-confidence. The Pax Romana feels eternal, solid, and utterly unbreakable. The world has settled into a deep, comfortable rhythm, a hypnotic stillness that allows for profound cultural flourishing. Yet, even in the deepest calm, a change is gathering. A slow, geological pressure that will eventually transform the entire system. The crisis of the 3rd century and the Great Transformation. The profound stillness of the Pax Romana shatters. Step across this threshold into a century of relentless turmoil, a period where the very foundations of the empire seem to shift and shake with geological force. The air now feels brittle, charged with anxiety and the sharp, metallic scent of constant campaigning. The vast, stable security the Roman world had taken for granted simply evaporates. This is the crisis of the 3rd century, a relentless 50-year span, roughly from 235 CE to 284 CE, where every pillar of the empire, political, military, and economic, is simultaneously under attack. You sense the sheer scale of the internal fracture and the terrifying incessant pressure from outside. The unraveling of the frontiers, the security of the frontiers, the great walls, and the mighty rivers suddenly crumbles. Imagine the low, urgent drumbeat of countless skirmishes, the sudden, sharp violence along the northern and eastern borders. The empire's enemies, the Sasanian Persians in the east, and various large, dynamic Germanic confederations, like the Goths and Alemanni in the north, no longer see Rome as an immovable barrier, but as a vast, rich land ripe for raiding. Picture the legions. They are constantly moving, fighting not for glory or conquest, but for sheer, desperate survival and the protection of their immediate provinces. The armies are depleted by plague and endless warfare. The soldiers feel a profound, growing loyalty only to the generals who can pay them and lead them to immediate victory, often ignoring the distant, ineffective government in Rome. You can hear the sounds of displacement, the lowing of cattle stolen in raids, the quiet, fearful whispers of villagers fleeing their homes, the frantic sound of citizens hastily reinforcing the crumbling walls of provincial town. The great roads, once arteries of trade, now primarily serve as conduits for massive, fast-moving armies. The chaos of the barracks emperors. Inside the empire, the quiet, centralized authority established by Augustus dissolves into anarchy. The principle of stable succession vanishes. Emperor follows emperor in swift, chaotic succession, a total of 26 different rulers in 50 years. These are the barracks emperors, elevated and cast down by the restless, fearful legions in the field. Feel the rapid, bewildering change in the air. A general is proclaimed emperor on the Danube, only to be murdered by his own troops a year later. Another is proclaimed in the east, only to be captured and humiliated by the Persians. The very concept of the emperor, the divine princeps, loses its aura of sacred permanence, becoming instead a temporary, highly dangerous job title. The empire briefly splinters into 3 separate, independent states: the Gallic Empire in the west, the Palmyrene Empire in the east, and the perpetually threatened Central Roman core. The sense of unified Roman identity is deeply fractured. The deepening economic and social decay. The instability leads inevitably to profound economic decay. Imagine the quiet horror of watching the currency collapse. Emperors, needing to pay their demanding legions instantly, dilute the silver content of the coinage, issuing debased money with every new reign. The result is a slow, grinding inflation. The value of Roman money melts away. A legionary's pay, once a source of security, quickly buys less and less. Trade falters, not because the roads are destroyed, but because merchants fear robbery and cannot rely on the value of the coin they will receive. The sophisticated web of Mediterranean commerce begins to fray. Local economies retreat into themselves, relying on barter instead of coin. The cities, the crowning glory of the Pax Romana, begin to shrink. The air in provincial centers is colder, quieter. Public life, the lavish spending on baths, theaters, and temples, ceases. People retreat behind defensive walls, building fortifications not in grand Roman style, but often hastily, using stones stripped from older, more magnificent public structures. The atmosphere is one of profound, anxious contraction. Feel the quiet despair of the senatorial class, the old aristocracy, whose wealth was based on land and taxation. They lose power, prestige, and security, unable to control the desperate military men who seize power. The social mobility of the Golden Age disappears, replaced by a rigid, fearful system where people cling to their land and their hereditary roles. The spiritual revolution, Christianity's quiet rise. Amidst this relentless storm of chaos and fear, the old Roman gods, symbols of stability, imperial victory, and earthly order, seem insufficient. They do not offer comfort in the face of continuous loss and impending disaster. Into the spiritual vacuum, a quiet, growing movement offers a new kind of comfort. Christianity. Picture the secrecy of the early congregations. Imagine the soft, flickering light of a single lamp in a hidden room, perhaps a simple rented house or a catacomb beneath the city. The only sound is the low, comforting murmur of shared prayer and the quiet, steady cadence of scripture being read aloud. This is a faith not of grand temples and earthly power, but of community, hope, and the profound promise of peace and salvation in the face of suffering. It offers a spiritual identity that transcends the failing imperial state. Though there were moments of sharp, state-sponsored persecution, driven by emperors desperate to unify the populace around the old state religion, the faith was too decentralized and too deeply rooted in the communities to be eradicated. Its growth during this chaotic century is a testament to its quiet, powerful resilience. It is a slow, quiet, profoundly influential revolution of the spirit, growing silently and steadily beneath the surface of the overwhelming military crisis. The turmoil is immense, but the empire is not ready to fall. It has reached its lowest ebb, but its deep structural organization, its sense of law, its roads, its vast infrastructure, provides a final, immense inertia. The system simply shifts, bends, and transforms, waiting for a general with the vision and the will to impose order once more. That man will be Diocletian. Diocletian and Constantine, Reform and the Rise of Christianity. The moment of deepest crisis gives rise to the necessary saviors, men of immense will who understood that the old system, though cherished, was terminally broken. The air of the late 3rd century is heavy with exhaustion, confusion, and a desperate, universal hunger for order. The first of these transformational figures is Diocletian, a soldier of immense practical intelligence and ironclad logic, who seized power in 284 CE. He did not seek to restore the gentle facade of Augustus's rule. He sought to impose an absolute, unyielding order through sheer bureaucratic force. Diocletian's Iron Order. The Tetrarchy. Diocletian looked upon the vast, fractured body of the empire, overstretched, financially ruined, and militarily unstable, and concluded that no single man could possibly manage it. The only way to save the whole was to divide the burden. Visualize his immense, radical reform, the Tetrarchy, or the Rule of Four. The empire is carved into 4 administrative sectors. It is split fundamentally into 2 halves, east and west, each governed by a senior emperor, an Augustus, and a junior emperor, a Caesar. Feel the deep, philosophical shift. This is not a friendly sharing of power. It is a meticulously designed system of military command and political succession intended to ensure stability. The 2 Augusti were the ultimate authority, and the 2 Caesars were meant to learn, govern, and then quietly succeed to the role of Augustus after 20 years, appointing new Caesars in turn. It was a beautiful, rational machine designed to eliminate the bloody chaos of the barracks emperors. The air of the court becomes heavier, more formal, less Roman, and more Eastern. Diocletian intentionally elevates the imperial image, moving away from the princeps, first citizen, and embracing the dominus, lord. Watch the quiet, precise change in ritual. The emperor is no longer approached easily. He is cloaked in rich silks and jewels, approached only through the elaborate ceremony of adoratio, where subjects must prostrate themselves. This formality was designed to instill a sense of remote, untouchable authority, creating a separation between the sacred person of the ruler and the messy reality of the state. Economic and social rigidity. To combat the crushing inflation and chaos, Diocletian applied the same rigid logic to the economy. He issued the Edict on Maximum Prices, an attempt to freeze all prices and wages across the entire empire. Imagine the administrative nightmare. Imperial agents attempting to enforce fixed prices on every single commodity, from a loaf of bread to a mule cart, across millions of square miles. The edict ultimately failed, proving that bureaucracy could not override the fundamental laws of economics, but it speaks to the desperate need for stability. Furthermore, he imposed an immense, unyielding rigidity on society. To ensure the tax base was stable and the armies had supplies, farmers were legally bound to their land, and sons were often forced to follow the professions of their fathers. Feel the quiet weight of this social immobility. The empire gains stability, but loses the freedom and fluidity that had characterized the Pax Romana. Life becomes harder, more defined, and less hopeful for the common man, yet the empire survives. Diocletian attempts to solidify the state religion as a source of imperial unity, leading to the Great Persecution, a final, systematic, and brutal attempt to stamp out Christianity. But by this point, the faith was too widespread, too deeply rooted in the East and across the military, to be destroyed. The persecution ultimately fails, only serving to highlight the deep divide between the old imperial state and the new spiritual landscape. In 305 CE, in a breathtaking gesture of his commitment to his system, Diocletian voluntarily abdicates, retiring to his immense palace on the Dalmatian coast, modern Split. He insists his co-Augustus, Maximian, do the same. His dream was to ensure the smooth, automatic transition of power to the Caesars. The dream immediately fails. Within a year, the system of 4 peacefully succeeding rulers collapses into brutal civil war. Constantine and the new spiritual compass. The final victor, the man who will reshape the future of the Roman world, is the young, quietly brilliant son of one of the tetrarchs, Constantine. He fights his way across the empire, eliminating his rivals one by one, culminating in the most famous spiritual and political turning point in Roman history. The decisive moment arrives under a quiet, watchful sky. Before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge outside Rome in 312 CE. Focus on the profound stillness of that night. Constantine faces a superior force led by his rival, Maxentius. Legend tells of a vision, a sign in the heavens, the Chi-Rho, the first two Greek letters of Christ's name. Constantine interprets this not as a religious conversion, but as an omen of victory. He orders his soldiers to paint the Christian symbol upon their shields. Listen to the sound of the paintbrush on the leather, the quiet, meticulous preparation for a battle that would determine not just the next emperor, but the spiritual destiny of Europe. Constantine wins. His victory is swift and total. The Christianization of the empire. With his victory, the transformation of the empire is complete. Take a deep, gentle breath and feel the shift in the empire's soul. The great persecutions are immediately ended. The Edict of Milan in 313 CE does not make Christianity the state religion, but it grants it full legal tolerance and restores confiscated church property. The quiet gatherings in the shadows emerge into the light of day. Feel the immense sense of relief and new legitimacy that flows through the Christian communities. The faith that began in secret now has the quiet, cautious patronage of the emperor. Constantine sees Christianity not merely as a religion, but as a potent new force for imperial unity. He supports the church, builds great basilicas, and intervenes in theological disputes, seeking to impose a unified doctrine on the fractured faith. He presides over the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, using the power of the state to convene bishops from across the vast empire, a fusion of imperial authority and religious doctrine that will define the next 1,000 years. The cross, once a symbol of abject state execution, slowly, quietly, becomes a symbol of imperial triumph and legitimacy. The empire has found a new, resilient, spiritual core to replace the weary old cults. The new Rome, Constantinople. But the final, most lasting act of transformation is the creation of a new Rome, one free from the burdensome traditions and powerful conservative Senate of the West. Constantine chooses the ancient Greek city of Byzantium, a strategic, stunning location on the Bosporus, the narrow strait linking the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. It is easily defensible and sits at the wealthy commercial and demographic center of the empire. Watch as the new city rises, majestic and secure, over 6 years of frantic building. Imagine the sense: cut timber, wet mortar, and the salt air of the sea. It is designed to be a Christian capital, filled with monumental churches and devoid of the vast pagan temples and statues that defined Rome. When it is solemnly dedicated in 330 CE, he names it Nova Roma, New Rome, but it will forever be known as Constantinople, the city of Constantine. The heart of the empire, its memory, its wealth, and its entire future has quietly, irrevocably moved east. The empire is fundamentally restructured. It is now governed by an absolute emperor, the Dominus, unified by a single powerful faith, Christianity, and centered on a new, impregnable capital far from the troubled western frontiers. Constantine dies in 337 CE. The empire, now legally and spiritually ready for its immense transformation. The quiet stability of the West, however, is now completely reliant on the strength and attention of the East. The erosion of the military and the state. Visualize the Roman legions of the 5th century. They are no longer the disciplined citizen-based fighting force of the Pax Romana. They are thin, demoralized, and their ranks are increasingly filled by the very people they were originally meant to keep out. Germanic warriors who maintain their own customs, their own language, and their own ultimate loyalty to their tribal leaders, not to the distant emperor in Ravenna. The Roman military, the ultimate guarantor of order, loses its Roman identity. The most powerful men in the Western Empire are no longer the aristocratic senators, but the half-Romanized barbarian generals, men like Stilicho, and Ricimer, who effectively make and unmake the emperors, often simple, powerless puppets. The infrastructure, the magnificent roads, the aqueducts, the public buildings, begins to suffer the neglect of constant crisis. Resources are diverted entirely to the army, leaving little for maintenance. Feel the damp, cold air in the once grand western cities, now quieter, dimmer, retreating behind their shrinking, hastily fortified walls. Public works cease. Baths fall silent. The sophisticated Roman way of life, with its libraries and public forums, slowly gives way to a smaller, more localized existence focused on immediate survival. The process of decline accelerates with key, symbolically devastating events. The sack of Rome, 410 CE. Feel the profound, shocking weight of this moment. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, finally take the Eternal City. It is a slow, methodical, 3-day plunder. While not entirely destructive, the psychological impact is immense. For 800 years, Rome had not fallen to a foreign enemy. The event reverberates throughout the entire Roman world, signaling that the ultimate guarantor of civilization was vulnerable. The philosopher St. Augustine writes the City of God largely in response to this crisis of faith and confidence. The loss of North Africa, 439 CE. Imagine the loss of the immense, vital breadbasket of the empire. The Vandals seized the wealthy provinces of North Africa, including Carthage. This is a quiet, economic death blow. The loss of the grain and tax revenue from these provinces starves the Western Empire of the resources needed to pay the foederati it relies upon, creating a vicious cycle of military dependency and financial collapse. The quiet dissolution, 476 CE. The end is not a cataclysm, but a quiet, almost dismissive anticlimax. A slow extinguishing of a flickering lamp that no longer had the fuel to burn. By the 470 CE, the Western Empire had shrunk to a collection of territories in Italy, often controlled by various Germanic chiefs. The last official figure to hold the purple robe in the West was a boy named Romulus Augustulus, a tiny, frail echo of the founder, Romulus, and the first emperor, Augustus. On a quiet day in 476 CE, a Germanic chieftain of the Heruli, named Odoacer, simply deposes the boy emperor. There is no great battle in the streets of Ravenna, no magnificent storming of the capital. Odoacer, acting with the quiet authority of the true military power, does not even bother to claim the empty title of emperor for himself. He sends the imperial regalia, the sacred purple cloak, the diadem, the symbols of power, back to the powerful, enduring emperor in Constantinople. It is a quiet, symbolic acknowledgement. The line of Western Roman emperors is finished. The legitimate authority of the empire now resides only in the East. The Roman Empire, the immense force that began on the Palatine Hill over 1,200 years earlier, has not so much fallen as it has dissolved into its constituent parts. The political structure is gone, but the civilization remains. The enduring legacy in the West. In the West, the quiet process of change begins. The blending of Roman law, Latin language, and Christian organization with the traditions of the new Germanic kingdoms, Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Franks. The lights dim in the West, but they do not go out. The language, the law, and the quiet, persistent memory of Rome linger, sinking deep into the soil of Europe, waiting to be rediscovered centuries later. The West moves into the period we call the early Middle Ages, while the focus of the Roman story shifts entirely to the east, to the glittering, impregnable fortress city of Constantinople, which will carry the torch of Roman rule and memory for another 1,000 years. The Roman Empire is now the Byzantine Empire. The enduring legacy. Rome's impact on civilization. The great narrative of the Roman world, from the quiet origins on the Palatine Hill to the final, somber silence of Constantinople's walls, is now complete. Yet, the story does not truly end. The fall of Rome was the quiet, necessary transformation of the greatest imperial structure ever conceived. It was not a sudden, clean break, but the immense, deep sinking of a foundation that would continue to support the entire architecture of the Western world. Take a slow, profound breath and focus on the quiet persistence of that foundation. The physical, military, and political empire vanished, but its spirit, its meticulous sense of order, its legal logic, and its universal language entered the soil of Europe and became the silent, invisible blueprint for everything that followed. This final contemplation is not about kings and battles, but about ideas and structures. The quiet, enduring gifts Rome passed to the future. The enduring logic of law. The single greatest, most pervasive gift of Rome is the concept of rational, written law. It is the enduring architecture of Western civilization itself. Close your eyes and visualize the ancient scribes working, slowly and meticulously, organizing the chaos of custom into the quiet, powerful order of the written word. This is the rule of law. The idea that society is governed not by the arbitrary whim of a ruler, but by clear, predictable, universally applicable principles. Feel the profound stability this idea imparts. Roman law provided a sophisticated framework for property rights, contracts, family relations, and civic duty. It gave people the quiet assurance that their dealings, their possessions, and their lives were protected by an impartial, rational system. This system was preserved, expanded, and perfected by Justinian's Corpus Juris Civilis, the legal text that quietly survived the fall of the West. The concept of ius naturale, natural law. The Romans formalized the concept that certain rights and moral codes are inherent and universal, belonging to all people simply because they are human, transcending the laws of any single state. This quiet philosophical understanding underpins every modern discussion of human rights, precedent, and due process. The Roman system established the quiet, powerful idea that court decisions should be based on previous cases, precedent, and that every accused person deserves a formal, structured process of defense, due process. The Republic's legacy in governance, even the later monarchies of Europe, and eventually the republics of the New World, would quietly borrow Roman vocabulary and concepts. Senate, consul, plebiscites, and the entire concept of a written constitution intended to limit power. The very structure of legislative, executive, and judicial bodies finds its quiet, formal root in the complex mechanisms of the Roman Republic. The quiet, intellectual achievement of Roman law is that it allowed predictability and trust to flourish across vast distances, enabling the sophisticated trade and commerce of the Pax Romana to take root. This legal logic is the invisible skeleton of the modern world. The persistence of language and communication. The Latin language, the steady rhythmic tongue of the Roman soldier, poet, and lawyer, is the second immense quiet gift. Listen to the enduring cadence of the language. In the West, as the empire dissolved, the official, elegant Latin of the Senate slowly, gently transformed in the mouths of the conquered peoples, blending with local dialects. The result was the formation of the Romance languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. These are not new inventions. They are simply Latin wearing new forms. Even English, a Germanic language, is profoundly saturated with Latin's influence. Over half of its vocabulary is derived from or transmitted through Latin. When you use words like justice, empire, pax, senate, veto, colony, civil, or manual, you are simply speaking the quiet, persistent voice of Rome. The alphabet, the Latin alphabet, the script you are reading now, is Rome's simplest, most ubiquitous legacy. It is the language of trade, science, and literacy across the globe. Communication and infrastructure. The great Roman roads may have crumbled, but the idea of unified, state-sponsored infrastructure for the common good, roads, bridges, clean water, sewer systems, is Rome's lesson. The quiet, profound commitment to engineering, to build things that are functional, enduring, and beautiful, is a core tenet inherited from the Roman spirit. The use of concrete, arches, and aqueducts defined the civilized city for 1,000 years. The unifying force of Christianity, the final, and perhaps most profound, transformation wrought by Rome, was its role as the incubator and vehicle for the spread of Christianity. The faith was not founded by Romans, but it was organized, structured, and disseminated by the Roman system. The role of organization. The early church adopted the Roman administrative structure. Bishops governed dioceses, mirroring the imperial bureaucracy. This organizational genius allowed the church to survive the political chaos of the West. The quiet authority of the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, grew precisely because he was seated in the city that symbolized eternal authority. The role of infrastructure. The vast, safe network of Roman roads and sea lanes allowed missionaries to travel across the entire Mediterranean basin quickly and securely during the Pax Romana. The widespread use of Koine Greek and Latin allowed scripture to be written and understood across diverse cultures. The empire provided the medium for the message. When the political structure of the West failed, the quiet, persistent authority of the Church, using Roman administrative principles, Latin liturgy, and the memory of the Roman legal structure, was the only institution capable of organizing society, preserving literacy, and transmitting the classical intellectual inheritance into the early Middle Ages. The spiritual legacy of Rome became the political and cultural foundation of medieval Europe. The aesthetic of power and the sense of duty. Beyond law and language, Rome imparted a deep, quiet aesthetic, a style of governance, and a way of life. Architecture and public space. The monumental scale, the dedication to public works, baths, forums, bridges, and the emphasis on the communal space. These are the quiet architectural statements of Roman power. The great revival of these forms in the Renaissance was an explicit attempt to recover the Roman aesthetic of dignity, order, and classical proportion. Every parliament building, every supreme court, every great classical statue is an echo of the form. The concept of virtus, manly virtue, and pietas, duty, Rome's core moral compass, even in its most corrupt periods, always revered the idea of duty over personal desire and service to the state over self-interest. This austere, quiet emphasis on civic responsibility is the psychological bedrock that allowed the Republic to endure its darkest hours. This enduring moral framework, though often breached, remains the ideal standard against which Western leaders are quietly judged. Final contemplation. The Eternal City. The vast, encompassing narrative of Rome is a constant reminder that nothing is truly permanent, yet nothing is truly lost. The legions fade, the marble crumbles, and the political boundaries vanish. But the quiet, persistent power of the Roman idea, the commitment to rationality, to organization, and to law, endures. Take a final, slow breath. Feel the weight of these 2,000 years settle upon you. You have stood on the frozen banks of the Rubicon, felt the silence after Cannae, walked the dazzling streets of Constantinople, and seen the light fade over the western hills. The Roman Empire did not fall. It transformed, dispersed, and became the genetic code of the West. Every time a contract is signed, a law is cited, a road is built, or a republic is founded, the deep, quiet voice of Rome speaks again. The dream is complete. The Eternal City lives on, a quiet, powerful presence in the very structure of the modern world.